there, and welcome to the Retirement Wealth Podcast. We're so glad you're joining us today.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here.
So today we're diving into an intriguing topic, the bucket strategy for retirement income. It's something a lot of people are curious about, right?
Yeah, for sure. The bucket strategy is a powerful way to think about your retirement income. It helps you organize your savings and investments in a way that can provide stability and growth, while also covering your needs.
Exactly. We're going to break down how it works, the different types of buckets you might consider, and some practical tips on how to implement this strategy in your own retirement planning.
And we'll also touch on how this method can help manage risks, like market volatility and unexpected expenses.
Plus, we'll share some real-life examples to illustrate how this strategy can make a difference in your financial future.
Sounds good. The more you understand about these strategies, the more empowered you'll feel to take control of your retirement.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in and explore what the bucket strategy is all about. David, can you give us an overview of the different buckets?
So Emily, this whole bucket strategy is really timely for a lot of folks right now.
Absolutely, David. The landscape for retirement planning has changed quite a bit, hasn't it? I mean, with inflation rates rising, people are feeling more pressure than ever.
Right, and that inflation can really eat into someone's retirement savings. Just think about it. If you've set a budget for your retirement years, and suddenly, the cost of everyday things jumps, it can feel like a punch in the gut.
Exactly! I was talking to a listener just the other day, and she mentioned how her grocery bill has nearly doubled in the last few years. That's a huge hit when you're on a fixed income.
It really is. And when you couple that with market volatility, it's like a double whammy. We've seen some pretty wild swings in the stock market lately. A lot of retirees, or even those approaching retirement, are understandably anxious about that.
For sure. I think it's really about finding a balance, right? Like, how do you protect your investments while also keeping that income flowing?
Exactly. That's where the bucket strategy comes into play. By segmenting your savings into different buckets for short-term and long-term needs, you can mitigate some of that risk. Have one bucket for immediate needs, another for medium-term, and a third for long-term growth.
That makes sense. And it's not just about the numbers, is it? There's that emotional side of financial security in retirement, too. People want to feel safe and stable.
Absolutely. I spoke with a couple last week. Let's call them Mike and Sarah. They're in their early 60s, and they've been feeling really uncertain about their retirement. They'd saved well, but with the economy shifting, they were worried about whether their savings would last.
That's a common concern, I think. So what did you suggest to them?
Well, first we talked about their timeline. They plan to retire in just a couple of years, so we discussed how they could allocate their funds across the buckets. We wanted to ensure they had enough liquidity for the first few years of retirement, while still having growth potential for their later years.
Right, because you don't want to be selling investments at a loss just to cover living expenses.
Exactly! And they were also worried about healthcare costs. That's another big issue for retirees. We discussed how those costs can really add up, especially with things like Medicare premiums and out-of-pocket expenses.
Oh, for sure. It can be daunting. I read somewhere that healthcare costs can consume a significant portion of retirement savings.
They can, and it's essential to plan for that. If you're using a bucket strategy, you might want to keep some of that money separate for healthcare expenses. It's all about anticipating those needs ahead of time.
And then there's the whole Social Security aspect, which is changing too. The rules can be a bit tricky, right?
Definitely. Many people are unsure about when to claim Social Security, especially with the changes coming down the pipeline. Timing can make a significant difference in the benefits they receive.
So would you say that strategizing around Social Security should be part of the bucket approach as well?
Absolutely. It's crucial. If you can delay claiming Social Security, you might increase your monthly benefit, which can be a great long-term strategy. It's like having a safety net that kicks in later, helping to fill that long-term bucket.
That's a good point. And what about the legacy planning? I feel like that's also an important piece of the puzzle.
Very much so. People want to leave something behind for their loved ones, and planning for that shouldn't be an afterthought. If you allocate a portion of your investments for legacy purposes, it can provide peace of mind.
So it's not only about how much you have, but also about making sure it's being used effectively.
Exactly. And the other day, I was speaking with a gentleman, let's call him John. He's in his late 70s and has done well for himself, but he's worried about how his children will manage his estate when he passes.
That's a real concern.
right? So we discussed how putting together a solid estate plan can help ensure that his wishes are honored and that his children aren't left in a complicated situation. It's part of that emotional security too, knowing that you've planned ahead.
I think that's so important. It's about more than just the money. It's about the legacy and the memories we leave behind.
Well said, Emily. And as we look at current economic trends, it's clear that we're in a bit of a transitional phase. People are living longer, and those retirement years can stretch out longer than ever before.
Right, which means that planning needs to be more robust and flexible.
Exactly. The bucket strategy helps with that flexibility, allowing you to adapt to changing circumstances, whether it's economic shifts or personal needs.
So it really is a strategic approach to navigating these uncertain times.
Definitely. And I think it's time we dive into some core strategies for implementing this bucket approach effectively. So let's dive into the bucket strategy, which is really a practical way to manage your retirement income. It's all about creating different buckets for your money, right?
Exactly. And each bucket has a specific purpose and timeline. I think a lot of people find that concept really helpful. Can you break down how that typically works?
Sure. Generally, you'd set up at least 3 buckets. The first bucket is for your short-term needs, maybe covering the first few years of retirement, like living expenses. This can be cash or cash equivalents, so something super safe and liquid.
Right, like money market accounts or even short-term bonds, right?
Exactly. You want this money to be easily accessible without the risk of losing value. A rule of thumb might be to cover about 3 to 5 years worth of expenses here. So if your annual expenses are, say, $50,000, you'd want around $150,000 to $250,000 in this first bucket.
That makes sense. And then what about the second bucket?
The second bucket is where you start getting a bit more aggressive. This is your medium-term bucket, typically for years 5 through 10 of retirement. It might include a mix of bonds and some equities, maybe a 70-30th allocation, where 70% is in stocks and 30% in bonds.
So you're looking for growth there, but still some stability, right?
Exactly. You want to capture some market gains while minimizing risk. The idea is that you're not touching this bucket for several years, so it can weather market fluctuations, and it allows for some appreciation over time.
And then the third bucket is where things can get really interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely. That third bucket is for long-term growth, typically years 10 and beyond. Here you're going to lean heavily into equities, maybe even 80% or more. This is where you want to take advantage of market growth for the long haul.
So even though there's some risk involved, the potential for higher returns is what you're banking on.
Exactly. And remember, ideally, the money in this bucket should be able to compound over time. You're planning for longevity, so you want to ensure your funds outlast you.
That's a critical point. And speaking of longevity, how does this tie into things like Social Security and other sources of income?
Great question. Social Security can serve as a reliable income source, and many folks will want to consider when to start taking those benefits. Delaying it can increase the monthly amount significantly. It's like a guaranteed return on investment, right?
Yeah, I've heard that delaying can increase your benefits by about 8% for each year past your full retirement age, up until age 70.
Exactly. And you can think of it as a way to fund your later years, while your buckets handle your earlier retirement expenses.
And what about tax-advantaged accounts like 401ks and IRAs? How do they fit into this bucket strategy?
Well, these accounts can hold investments for each of your buckets. For instance, you might keep more conservative investments in a traditional IRA to defer taxes, while using a Roth IRA for your long-term bucket, where withdrawals can be tax-free.
That's smart. It's all about managing your tax liability over time.
Right. And when it comes to withdrawals, many people follow the 4% rule, which suggests that you can withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year without running out of money. But with the bucket strategy, you can be more strategic about that.
So you're not just pulling from one account or bucket, but rather planning withdrawals to optimize your tax situation?
Exactly. For example, you might withdraw from your taxable accounts first to allow your tax-advantaged accounts to grow longer. Then, as you need more income, you can start drawing from your traditional IRA or 401k in a way that minimizes your tax impact.
That sounds really effective. And I imagine diversification is key in all of this too, right?
Absolutely. Diversifying within each bucket can help manage risk. In your growth bucket, for instance, you might have a mix of large cap stocks, small cap stocks, and maybe even some international exposure.
So you're not just throwing everything into one basket. It's about spreading risk across different assets.
That's right. And each bucket can have its own diversification strategy tailored to its purpose and time horizon.
And what about real estate? Does that fit into the bucket strategy?
Yes, it can be a great addition. Real estate can serve as an income-generating asset, perhaps in your medium or long-term buckets. It provides cash flow and can appreciate over time, but it also comes with its own risks and maintenance considerations.
Plus, rental income can be a nice supplement to your retirement income, can't it?
Definitely. It's something to consider as part of your overall asset allocation. You just want to ensure it aligns with your overall retirement income strategy.
And speaking of strategies, there are some common pitfalls to avoid, right?
Absolutely. One major pitfall is failing to regularly reassess your buckets as time goes on. Market conditions change, and so do your needs.
Yeah, and staying too conservative can be another issue, especially if you're living longer than expected.
Exactly. You want to ensure your money lasts as long as you do, which means being mindful of inflation and investment growth.
And I think it's also important to have a plan for required minimum distributions, or RMDs, if you have traditional accounts, right?
Yes. RMDs kick in at age 73, and you must withdraw a certain amount each year. Planning for that ahead of time can help you avoid penalties and manage your tax situation effectively.
It sounds like there's a lot to consider, but with the right strategies in place, you can really set yourself up for a successful retirement.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive and having a plan that evolves with you through your retirement years.
Perfectly said. I think that wraps up a solid overview of the bucket strategy and its importance in retirement planning.
So, Emily, when we talk about common pitfalls in retirement planning, one of the biggest mistakes I see is underestimating the impact of sequence of returns risk.
Absolutely, David. It's a real eye-opener for many. Can you explain what that means for our listeners?
Sure. Sequence of returns risk refers to the order in which your investment returns occur. If you experience losses early in retirement, right when you're withdrawing money, it can have a devastating effect on your portfolio's longevity.
Right, because if your investments drop and you're still pulling money out, you're selling low, which is never a good strategy.
Exactly! I had a client. Let's call him Jim. He retired right before the 2008 financial crisis. He had a great nest egg, but during those initial years, he faced significant market losses. Instead of recovering, he found himself having to withdraw more and more just to maintain his lifestyle.
That's tough. Did he ever recover from that?
Unfortunately, no. Not fully. He had to adjust his lifestyle significantly. It really highlighted for him the importance of having a diversified withdrawal strategy, one that could withstand those market fluctuations.
And that's key, isn't it? Diversifying not just in terms of investments, but also in the way you plan your withdrawals.
Definitely. Another common mistake is ignoring the impact of taxes when planning withdrawals. Many retirees think about their gross income without considering how much they'll actually keep after taxes.
Oh, I've seen that too. Like, someone might have a solid income from their retirement accounts, but if they're not factoring in taxes, that could really affect their cash flow.
Exactly. I remember a couple, let's say the Smiths. They had a decent amount saved, but they only focused on their pre-tax dollars without thinking about the tax implications. When they started withdrawing, they were surprised to find that a significant portion was going towards taxes.
That must have been frustrating for them.
It was, and it led to some tough decisions. They ended up having to rethink their entire withdrawal strategy and even reconsider certain investments. It highlighted the need for comprehensive tax planning as part of their retirement strategy.
So it's not just about how much you've saved, but also how you're going to take that money out.
Exactly. And speaking of underestimating, let's talk about healthcare and longevity. Many retirees don't plan adequately for healthcare costs or the potential length of their retirement.
Right. It's often an overlooked area in retirement planning. People typically think about their lifestyle expenses, but healthcare can really add up, especially as we age.
I had a client, let's call her Mary. She was in great health when she retired, but she didn't consider the possibility of needing long-term care. A few years in, she faced significant medical issues, and the costs were staggering.
That must have been a wake-up call for her.
It was. She had to dip into her savings significantly, something she hadn't planned for. It's vital to have a strategy that not only includes healthcare costs, but also considers long-term care insurance options.
And then there's the issue of asset allocation. Many retirees fail to adjust their portfolios as they age, holding on to riskier investments longer than they should.
Absolutely. I had a couple who were very aggressive in their early retirement years. They loved the growth potential, but as they aged, their portfolio wasn't aligned with their risk tolerance anymore.
I can see how that could be a problem. Did they face any consequences?
Yeah, they did. When the market took a downturn, they were hit hard, and it really shook their confidence. They had to pivot quickly to a more conservative strategy, which was stressful for them.
It sounds like a lot of these mistakes stem from not regularly reviewing and adjusting one's retirement plan.
Exactly. And another big mistake is claiming Social Security too early. Many people are eager to start collecting benefits, but if they don't consider the long-term implications, it can cost them significantly.
That's such a good point. I've heard of people claiming early just because they want that immediate income, but they don't realize how much they're leaving on the table.
Right. For example, I had a client named Tom. He started taking his benefits at 62, thinking it would help with his cash flow. But when he turned 70, he realized he had missed out on a substantial increase in his monthly benefit.
It's like a double-edged sword. Sure, you get money sooner, but it could end up being less overall.
Exactly. It's crucial to analyze the best age to claim, based on individual circumstances, life expectancy, and financial needs.
So what can listeners do to avoid these pitfalls?
Well, first, regular reviews of your financial plan are essential. Make sure you're reassessing your asset allocation, withdrawal strategies, and tax implications regularly.
That makes sense. And maybe even working with a financial advisor can help navigate these complexities.
Absolutely. An advisor can provide personalized strategies and help you spot red flags early. It's all about being proactive rather than reactive.
So, David, if someone notices some of these red flags in their planning, what are their next steps?
They should start by conducting a comprehensive review of their financial situation. Look at your withdrawal strategy, your asset allocation, and your healthcare plans.
And don't forget about Social Security planning.
Exactly. And if you feel overwhelmed, reaching out to a trusted financial advisor can really make a difference. They can help you create a plan tailored to your needs and goals.
Well, those are some valuable insights. It's so important to think ahead and avoid these common mistakes.
Absolutely, Emily. Planning for retirement is a journey, and being informed is the first step towards a secure and comfortable retirement.
Thanks for sharing all this, David. It's such an essential topic for anyone planning for their future.
My pleasure, Emily. Always here to help. So, let's dive into some actionable steps that our listeners can take right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to feel empowered to take control of your retirement planning.
Right. One of the first things I'd suggest is to really start looking at those retirement calculators available from places like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. They can give you a good estimate of how much you'll need.
Oh, I love those tools. They make it so easy to visualize your goals. You can plug in your current savings, expected retirement age, and even your estimated expenses.
Exactly, and it can help you see if you're on track or if there are adjustments that need to be made. Plus, they often provide projections on how long your savings might last based on different withdrawal strategies.
And speaking of strategies, using the bucket strategy we talked about earlier can be a great way to organize your investments.
Yes, and if you're unsure where to start, consider running retirement projections using those same calculators. It helps to see the numbers in black and white,
And don't forget about Social Security. Going to ssa.gov can really clarify your benefits and help you decide the best time to claim.
Absolutely. That site is a treasure trove of information. You can even create an account to access your earnings history and get estimates based on different claiming ages.
Which is super helpful. And if folks are looking for something more comprehensive, there are several financial planning apps out there, like Personal Capital or Mint, that can help track expenses and investments in real time.
Right, and they often come with features that allow you to set goals and monitor your progress. It's a fantastic way to keep everything in one place.
And for those who enjoy reading, there are some great books on retirement planning. I'd recommend The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. It's straightforward and really motivating.
Great pick. I'd also suggest How Much Money Do I Need to Retire by Todd Tresider. It dives deep into practical numbers and planning strategies.
Podcasts can be really beneficial too. The Retirement Show and The Money Guy Show are both informative and engaging, with tips that you can apply right away.
For sure, and let's not overlook the habit of reviewing your portfolio quarterly. It's a small step that can lead to big improvements in your strategy.
Yeah, it's so important to stay engaged with your investments. Making adjustments based on market conditions or personal circumstances can really pay off.
Definitely. And running those retirement projections regularly, maybe even semi-annually, can ensure you're still on the right path.
And if you notice something off, don't hesitate to reach out to a financial advisor. It's never too late to improve your plan.
Exactly. And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Tailoring your strategy to your unique situation is crucial.
I love that. And even small changes can lead to significant results over time.
Yes, and if someone feels overwhelmed, starting with just one of these steps can be a game changer.
Right. Like setting aside an hour this week to review your current savings or even just jot down some retirement goals can be a great start.
And every step you take brings you closer to feeling more secure in your retirement.
So those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together.
Well, Emily, as we wrap up this episode, I think it's important to highlight a few key takeaways from our discussion on the bucket strategy for retirement income.
Absolutely, David. So one of the first points is having a clear plan for your income can really help reduce stress during retirement, right?
Exactly. And we talked about how the bucket strategy helps you allocate your assets in a way that provides both safety and growth potential. It's like having a safety net while still reaching for your financial goals.
Right, and then there's the concept of liquidity. Having that immediate access to funds for the short-term needs can really make a difference when unexpected expenses pop up.
Yes, and let's not forget the importance of adjusting your buckets over time. As you age, your needs and risk tolerance can change. So being flexible is key.
Definitely. And I think the last point we touched on was the emotional aspect of retirement planning. Knowing that you have a structured income plan can give you peace of mind, allowing you to enjoy your retirement more fully.
Well said, Emily. It's all about building and protecting your retirement wealth so you can focus on what truly matters, like spending time with loved ones and pursuing your passions.
Exactly. And if you found value in today's episode, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, and maybe even comment on your biggest takeaway or a question you have about the bucket strategy.
Yes, and don't forget to share this episode with someone who's planning for retirement or is already in it. It could really help them in their journey.
And next time, we're diving into something really exciting: how to invest in ETFs for retirement. It's a great way to diversify your portfolio.
That's right. So make sure to tune in for that.
Thanks so much for joining us today, everyone.
Take care, and we'll see you next time.